Oh my God, I'm able to do a show during the day. Was it Christmas? It's January 6th, and it's 75 degrees outside here in SoCal. And for all of you under snow, it was really cold here. We had snow in places that we'd never had snow. Well, at least in probably the last 50 years, like Bakersfield. So I thought I'd take advantage of the opportunity here. I thought that was a little zoomed. Well, today I thought we'd talk about something I wrote in my phone about a week ago, which is, may not make any sense to you right away, but I think it will eventually, which is what I'm calling intellectual hatred. And what that means to me, it really comes from my hometown, comes from the Midwest in general, but it happens everywhere. It's just at different levels, at different places. But there's a trend in the Midwest. When you get sort of landlocked in the Midwest, right? You're not financially capable of going anywhere else. And even if you were, you're so terrified of the world because you've never been anywhere that you won't go. Maybe you've taken a vacation, but when you think about really living wherever you take your vacation, you're like, oh man, I could never handle this. And so you go back to your little town. But you watch television. It's a very meticulous process that occurs to create this intellectual hatred. In the Midwest, you can get to a point where you feel like everyone else is having more fun than you. Everyone else's children everywhere else are more educated than your children. Which, now that I've talked to plenty of my friends from the Midwest, we know that's completely bunk. You get a much stronger education in the Midwest. But still, they see the nightlife city, they see all these opportunities, nightclubs, beaches, amusement parks, whatever turns them on. They don't think they have them in the Midwest, and so they get envious. But now here's the other element to it. So you have someone who's fairly young and awake in terms of just what's out there in the world, not necessarily the deep conspiracies or anything. And then they'll go to their local pizza parlor or their local, barbecue joint or whatever. And they start talking to other locals that are older than them. And they get this sense that they're in a world of a bunch of country bumpkins. And so, which again, may or may not be the case, but this is how they feel. And so now they feel like, oh my God, I'm stuck in the Midwest with a bunch of, undereducated, uncultured people, not understanding that they're really actually wrong about that. And the strength of those individuals is actually what will keep them on track. As I always say, you learn all these lessons in the Midwest that you never learn in a big city because you mechanically can't. But you will learn some things in the big city that obviously you can't learn in the Midwest as well, or little towns, right? I know this is kind of going all over the place, but stick with me here, because this is a real syndrome that's going on in the United States of America, at least. So you have this person, male, female, a worker, housewife, doesn't matter. It does tend to show itself in my personal history with my friends that are more housewives. Just something that happens. But what they do is, in order to do this sort of faux upgrade of their intellect in their own mind, what they do is it's almost like they get a brochure from the coast. And the brochure says, this is what we hate. This is what we like. This is what makes us sophisticated city folk. And these people automatically take someone else's opinion and start to hate the same thing. And the big trend, which is going to utterly gut this country of the United States if we don't squash it, and it's actually being squashed by our current president, but it could get out of hand, is that these individuals are actually enjoying the solitude of what those bumpkins have created. Meaning, I'll give you an example. I take my friends from my hometown, they come and visit, and I go, hey, wouldn't you want to live here? And they look at the traffic, and they're like, no way, I would never want to live there. I don't even live next to Wichita or Kansas City because I don't like big cities. And those are not really that big of a city, either one of those places. And so what they do when they go home and they take on, usually, again, they're living in a generally conservative area. It's not extreme right, it's just pretty much dead center to right, just a little bit, because a farmer has to have stability in their lives and they can't be, worrying about trends and stuff. But what they do is they take a liberal agenda from the coastal regions that they see on TV, that they see on the Oscars and the Grammys and TMZ.com, and they absorb it. They don't really understand what they're doing, but they absorb it. And in the end, what's going to occur is that their Midwest sanctuary, which protects their inability to live in a city, is going to disappear because Agenda 21's coming, and it's destroying the Midwest. All these people will be herded into major cities. Anyone that's, say, 50 to 60 years old, who's going to live another 20 to 30 years, may find themselves in some, concentration camp city with massive surveillance, which is the Agenda 21 goal. Now, in America, we're fighting back, but you never know what's going to happen, right? So in order to go to their local restaurants, bars, gatherings with their friends, they tote the surface layer of a liberal agenda into the room. And I don't know what it's like for them to meet each other, but I definitely see it online. I see, you're more literally, it's unbelievable. The guys in my high school that were more feminine, not necessarily gay by any stretch, but just feminine dudes, they tend to huddle around these women who are doing this game of, hey, I'm suddenly a liberal. And it's really funny because in the show Little Britain, they nailed this archetype hugely. And it was, I don't know if you guys have seen Little Britain, it was on BBC 4. And it was these two guys had this great sketch comedy show. I forget what their names are, but they're brilliant. One is sort of tall and handsome, and the other one is sort of short and chubby. Probably handsome, but he's so fat, it was ridiculous. I think he lost a lot of his weight, but they also, Come Fly With Me was their second show they made. But they did Little Britain 2 seasons, and then a Little Britain in America, and then they did Come Fly With Me. I don't think they work together anymore. But the fat guy, absolutely hilarious dude. So talented, it's ridiculous. Both of them. They could play like 50 characters apiece. But he created a skit called The Only Gay in the Village. And he would walk, and he was all flamboyant like this, and he wore this crazy outfit, this huge pot belly. And so he wore like this tiny little choker, I think it was like yellow, and little bikini bottoms and stuff, and a G-string. And he would go to the pub in Britain. And he'd talk like this, and he'd be like, I'm the only gay in the village, And the whole thing was, he tried to be profound by being gay. Then, and he had this little tiny hat on too, which was hilarious. Then, he, I think, put an advert out that was looking for men. And all these like big masculine guys kept coming into the bar. Are you that guy that put the ad out? Oh, yes, and then all of a sudden, it came down to actually being gay. And I couldn't understand exactly how they put this together. It was hilarious. He would suddenly get terrified of being with a man. And he'd make any excuse not to be with the man. And he would just, there was a female bartender who was, the whole room was very accepting of the guy. And he wants them to not accept him. He wants to stand out and be a big, look at me kind of dude, right? But everyone accepts him. The guys are coming in, one after the other, trying to have sex with the guy. And he I don't know if he wasn't gay or he was scared to be gay. I don't know what the thing was. But that was the way the skit worked. And this is how it's working in the Midwest for these sort of ankle-deep intellectuals claiming to be liberals. When you start interviewing them about their movement, about their party, about what they believe in, how anything's going to get paid for in these socialistic programs, they, in my experience, these are what I assumed to be very educated individuals, they come up bone dry. absolutely bone dry. And so once you sort of wake up a little bit to the world, and you can pick any subject on planet Earth, you realize we have this massive inertia towards fixing anything because we have too many people believing the hoax or believing in a philosophy they don't really understand. And what we're going to review here. How many of you would like, to really get into space travel? But you look at NASA and you're like, eh. In fact, I'm going to look up a comment here. 1 second. The comment was by a person who calls himself Trinston Rubin. He made a great comment. He or she made a great comment. The comment was on my Going Off-World episode, which involves a lot of space travel conversation, a little bit of NASA this, NASA that. Now, again, I'm constantly raking NASA over the coals because of their boatload of lies. But this person said, look, I really kind of dial out of these episodes now because NASA is such a liar. I can't take anything related to space travel seriously. And I kind of mentioned that in the episode as we start. I said, just stick with me here because we're going to move around NASA and go our own way. When you meet these individuals who have obviously picked up some sort of brochure online of what's trendy and what's cool, and then you attempt to have a conversation with them about their own massive agenda, and they don't know anything. They don't know who George Soros is. That's such a common trait of these liberal morons. Okay, well, he's the guy pulling all your strings. I mean, you think you're thinking for yourself, but one of his 179 corporations are controlling what you think. When you voted and you thought you voted for Trump, but your vote switched over to Hillary's vote, it's because that asshole owns over 40% of the most popular voting machine in the United States of America. It's pretty important you know that, right? When you ask a liberal how money gets valued in this world, they have no clue. How fractional reserve banking works, they have no clue. And it's just categorical. I am yet to have a single deep conversation on the Democrat side about the facts of the world, just the basic facts. This is before we even debate philosophy of how what exists out there that supports the world could be manipulated A, B, C, D to change the world in one way or another. They're unaware of everything. Now, there are some advanced agendas that I don't really slight anybody for, because Agenda 21 is, again, fully disclosed and fully manicured at the EU side of the world. In the United States of America, it's a conspiracy theory. Unbelievable. I had this band of housewives. I stepped into their thread on Facebook because they were just spouting a bunch of bullshit, don't know what they're talking about. And I just reminded them that what they were hating Trump for was related to Trump turning off the, TPP, NAFTA, a bunch of the Agenda 21 stuff. And then this, only gay in the village woman came in. She's literally lesbian, which is fine with me. It's just, she really parades that as, I get to say things you don't get to say, and you can't say anything against me because I'm going to use my orientation as a defense mechanism. And it's like, seriously, we all knew when you were like 12, this is the way you were. We fully accepted you, so don't throw it around as a big baton, But she steps in with the, you're in a conspiracy world. How do you figure, man? It's every 10 years the EU meets on it, from 94 to 2004 to 2014. They meet on it and talk about it publicly. Agenda 21. Moving everyone out of the rural areas of the world into major cities. Major surveillance in these cities. The social credit system that China has, that's a big part of it. Reducing world population, 96 to 99%. Big part of it. It's just a part of their plan. The other thing that's really interesting is I have liberal friends that will rah depopulation. And the naivete there is they believe they're on the list to be the after group, or that they think the people that will come after them, that will survive the depopulation are like them. And it's nothing like them. There's two types of people that will survive the depopulation if they ever get their way. It's going to be these rich bankers / royal families, maybe an Epstein or two, and then a bunch of peasants, a bunch of third world peasants who will not ask any questions, which means every white person on planet Earth, if they're not part of the banking cartel, we're gone. We're gone. Anyone who's intellectual, gone. You have to be a Neanderthal to survive, because they don't want anyone that has the mental capacity to question their methodology. They're not looking to reset again after the reset. They may inevitably say in 10,000 years it might be necessary, but they're looking to genetically condition down those that serve them. And as soon as robots can replace that lot, then they're just going to populate the world with their seed, But these are big ideas. Nobody thinks in big ideas, right? Which is, again, why David Rockefeller wrote in his memoirs, he goes, this is why we operate at a level that you can't conceive. There's nothing to fight, because no one can conceive of what we do. And now, because of the sophistication of storytelling, because of the internet, and because of just sort of the Great Awakening in itself, we are, clawing our way up the side of their skyscraper that has all these floors with these chambers of things we couldn't possibly imagine before. I always get the vision of like that Ghostbusters building, that really crazy, crazy building. At the top is just all their child sacrifices up there, Super hideous stuff that, we really can't deal with as a society. So the purpose of this episode is to highlight the fact that people are sort of trying to upgrade their intelligence, or their intellectual perception in the world, their persona, by trying to convince the world that they hate all the right things, right? And again, I've gone over it several times, but people hating Trump just to seem like they're intelligent. They don't think for themselves. They haven't pieced together that they operate in a bunch of oxymorons. When people say Trump is a jackass, I can understand that, because to their standards, they would never talk to another soul the way that he talks to folks, right? I got friends of mine that have told me, I've never called anyone a name my entire life. And I'm like, wow, that's fucking amazing, man, because I sure as fuck have. It's like when someone is an asshole, boy, they get it, man. They get it 100%. I call them completely out. I don't think people deserve to navigate around their deeds, right? I'm not saying I'll forgive people, but hey, it's just like you were an asshole yesterday, right? Yeah, all right, well, great. Give me a hug. Boom, boom, boom. We're all right. So I don't have that moral fiber to do that. So when they see Trump do it, they're like, oh my God, he's so, visceral and da-da-da. It's like, okay, at least I get that. I get that part of it. But there are a bunch of folks, and this is not a Trump episode, but it's just, he's a fun target at this point for this particular conversation. But they'll say that he doesn't know how to read. I don't know who is spreading this frickin' rumor. I mean, it's just the funniest thing. If you actually believe that Trump can't read, it's unbelievable, right? He reads off teleprompters all day long, graduates the top 3 in his class in college. I mean, how do you get through school? How do you make $10 billion? How do you sign a contract? I mean, it's like, this isn't, Mayweather? He doesn't know how to read. He just boxes. What does he have to do, with anything? Trump's office is, he reads like JFK. I mean, he's got like 20 magazines on his desk. And this is the way he's been running his own personal office in Trump Tower for the last 40 years. It's crazy. And believe me, I know people with reading disabilities that cover it up. They fill up their living room with shelves of books, but they can't read 2 pages of a script in a week. I know people like this. They have 14 copies of the Bible, but they don't know who Paul is. That's a person who doesn't know how to read. And they need to cough it up so we can move on past their issues, So I've seen the real thing. And what's nuts about it is, George Soros is funding, whether he's dead or not, his organization is funding the fight against freedom, the fight against anything other than socialism. He is fighting to implement Agenda 21. And Trump is the biggest obstacle on planet Earth for Agenda 21 right now in modern day history. And so, of course, all of these globalists are moving in to displace him. But now only some of the group, and I don't even know what the percentage is, but I would say it's probably less than 5% of the group understand that they're fighting for Agenda 21. Your Pelosi's understand that. Your Schiff understands that. So they know how nefarious their plan is. But the Midwest wives, and I haven't seen a guy do it. Well, actually, sorry, no. I have like an effeminate guy that I used to hang out with when I was a little kid. And he's the one that, thinks everything's a conspiracy until it's proven it's not a conspiracy. And then, of course, he knew it the entire time that it wasn't a conspiracy. So they don't have any idea that they are fighting for their own demise. They're fighting to fuck everything up. And it's so sad. As of right now, Australia is suffering one of the largest fires in the history of their entire island. And my friend's a geologist, and I have confirmed it is considered an island, not a continent. So Kim.com, a former client of mine, he's up there posting. He has no idea that I know him too. It's funny. He's up there posting that the climate change is real because he's seeing the forests burn in Australia. Okay. So there he is advancing an Agenda 21 population control mechanism. And Kim.com is exactly the kind of guy that will be able to continue screwing and having kids because he can buy his credits. He doesn't give a shit about you. And the fact that you'll never be able to buy more than... you could buy, one child with your climate change credits. Your second one's going to cost you, and your third one, you need to be rich. Right? This guy with like 3 or 4 kids. What he doesn't understand, because he's really he's completely asleep. I mean, I look at this guy's posts. I thought his heart was in the right place. He's on one of these Julian Assange free things, which I think Julian should be pardoned and freed immediately. And again, I think Julian's being held in Europe because they know if he comes to America, we're going to pardon him. Even though morons keep saying that if he comes to America, we're going to execute him. It's like, are you kidding me? He's the reason why Trump got elected. He's the reason why we're waking up. Q of all people said that he's totally safe once he gets here. But they don't want to let him go because he threatens the establishment over there. So they want to keep him in their prisons over there. Hopefully until he dies is their hope, right? But anyway, Kim doesn't pay attention, right? So chemtrails. Chemtrails drop nano-sized aluminum oxide. Go ask retired neurosurgeon Dr. Russell Blaylock, who has got a sampling of this stuff and checked it out and proven it. What aluminum oxide does to the soil in the ground is that it takes it from a negative acidity, which is important for growing crops. I think it's like 6.3 to 6.7 is the growth index for acidity in soil, and it alkalines it back to 0. But once the nitrates are gone in the soil and goes to 0, the plants die. Sorry, cat's in heat or whatever it is. I think it's a dude cat too. I don't understand it. But once all of that spraying on Australia settles for 5, 10, 20 years, you've got a ton of gutted plants that are ready to burn. They don't have to be necessarily completely dead, but they're super duper extra dry, and their internals are super duper extra dry because the internal of a plant systemically dies first and then the outside dies, right? So as soon as they want to drop the match on that place, kapow. So they are orchestrating, as David Icke would say, the problem reaction solution to instantiate climate change / the climate change credits, your carbon credits, And Kim.com, an influencer on Twitter, is out there pumping bullshit because I guess the guy doesn't have enough time to pull his head out of his ass and study anything. And he also took the whole tack that we're, climate change deniers, which he's trying to link it to the Holocaust, right? What a fucking asshole. That we're all idiots because we actually studied, from the head meteorologist at MIT, from the top patent holding guy at NASA, from one of the co-founders of Greenpeace, right? And 3 other experts that are above all 3 of those guys. The first 6 dudes who were hired to investigate global warming back in 2003, who then sued for 10 years to get their name off of Al Gore's list because they said this is all fraud. But this is how someone creates a faux position, but maybe it's even a real position, on a faux subject that they don't know a fucking thing about, to seem intellectual, right? I'm sure when Kim.com, unless he's literally getting paid, he's hiding in New Zealand because there's no extradition. I don't exactly know what his problem was. I mean, he created the mega download. I don't think that was a violation of anything. They said he was a huge hacker back in the day and did a bunch of crimes. I don't know. I personally have no idea why that guy's in there other than mega download. But what if, and as part of his case, I doubt this is the case, but what if part of his settlement to get out of his perpetual lawsuit that he seems to be in with the entire planet is start toting the climate change thing, start toting the carbon credit thing. And then if we can see that you have influenced and affected our Agenda 21, pro-Agenda 21 depopulation thing, then maybe we'll lighten your charges. And so he goes up there and goes, okay, I'll do that. He told everyone to see TED Talks to get educated. Isn't that funny? Oh, really? TED Talks. Of all the fucking places on planet Earth, right? The controlled, super policed Agenda 21 fucking, talking points show. There's TEDx and there's TED. I have categorically found that the people that watch a TED as a super addicted thing are the most fucking indoctrinated people on planet Earth. The faux intellectuals who can't come up with an idea of their own, right? You sit down and it's like, well, did you hear what this person said? Did you hear what that person said? I read a book. And it's like, okay, that's all great. It's all right if you do that stuff. But since I've been talking to you, haven't heard you come up with your own idea once. Wouldn't that be nice? Because I'm not sitting down with that person who wrote the book. I'm not sitting down at my TV watching a fucking TED Talk. I'm sitting here talking to you. So why don't you try just to clear your mind of all the other shit you've heard from somebody else? Why don't you turn on a little bit of IQ, some little intellectual quota here, intelligence quota, and try to think up a thought on your own. Make a connection that's never been made. Why don't you do that? And you would see their head fucking implode, right? Now, what's interesting, as I've said several times on the show, is that when you do find people that are all caught up in this intellectual hatred, and I sit them down here in this back patio, and I say, well, what do you believe? And they'll come off with things that are totally different than me. Pro this, pro that. Anti this, anti that. Trump's a douche, whatever. Bernie's fucking Jesus Christ on earth. Something like that. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I totally respect your opinion, And I get all the hatred out. It's almost like rubbing out a bunch of lactic acid out of their system, right? And as soon as they kind of get it all out, they've it's almost like throwing up food poisoning. It's all over the ground, right? And then I say, okay, so what you're really saying is, I go down this line of things that we all want. It's the same list that I have. And then they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty much what I want. I'm like, okay, just so you know, I believe completely opposite everything that you believe, but my list of things that I want to have happen on this planet are exactly the same as yours. And then we compare notes. We compare our list, and I say, okay, if you just had to generically say, without political bias, without some other thing going on, agenda bias. What is the number one thing that will get your list working, right? The first step, no matter what, it's always education. Education, education, education. Education fixes racism. Education fixes people without jobs. Education starts to teach you history, and then you start to identify the patterns that exist today that if we don't change things, we're going to repeat it really hardcore. So in the recent news here, we've killed this general in the Middle East. The guy was in town orchestrating an anti-American event. They literally broke into the embassy and burned it down. I've seen the photographs of it. It's all burned up inside. It's all torn up inside. The guy was there to watch the mayhem. He gets on a helicopter. Poof, they shoot his ass out of the sky. He is dead. Now, one of the interesting things about the intellectual hatred side of things is the position they might have on war. It's very interesting. When Trump tried to pull everyone out of Syria, all these liberals were like, you got to keep everybody in there. And we're like, now, wait a minute. Are you the old Jim Crow KKK folks that are racists and you don't really care about the value of human life, so you want all of our young men and women to die in that region for no fucking reason whatsoever? Or are we not supposed to be a police state and we're supposed to pull everybody back to America so that we can actually take care of our own? Which is what almost every single sentient American believes. So when you see us get propagated out there as warmongering folks, you need to understand, the current president and most of the citizens, probably 65% easy, want everyone out of every country. We want all of our soldiers out of every single country but the United States of America. We want them all back here. Out of Europe, out of Asia, out of the Middle East. We want them all here. Now, we protect oil, unfortunately, so we're going to have a contingency in the Middle East no matter what. Which is half the reason why most of us hate the notion of running the world on oil. It's empowering a bunch of Neanderthals, okay? But so we knock out a general who's literally the real deal Osama bin Laden, right? Osama bin Laden, we're not quite sure. He was a CIA asset. He helped fight the Afghan-Russian war. He was a very rich kid. He was literally an asset. He was in the Al-CIA database, right? As George Bush always calls Al-Qaeda. And so we really nail a real bad guy. I mean, out of everybody we detained at 9/11, we're not sure who was, really a bad guy and who wasn't a bad guy. This dude was a bad dude. And now, because they have this platform of intellectual hatred for the President of the United States, they are now trying to make this guy a martyr. Right? They take a Satan on earth and they make the guy a martyr. It's always that way, right? This is the danger of this process. And I'm just mentioning ones that are American-centric. Those of you in Europe, you have your own versions of these individuals all over the place. All these these SJWs that were trying to say that Sharia law was fucking awesome. And so they said it's totally safe in the Middle East. There's been at least 2 females. One of them was a reporter, and I believe 2 couples that have tried to cross Eurasia, the Middle East. They were all caught, raped, and murdered. All of them. Not a single person made it across. Well, there you go. We had our LGBTQ community defending Sharia law and Muslim invasion of Europe. And then there's video after video of them trying to leave a nightclub and being murdered in the parking lot. I have seen one of these filmed in 2013. This guy came out of the club and these Muslims chased him down and beat him to death and killed him in the parking lot. Oh, and these are the people that you're supporting? What are you, fucking nuts? If they take control, you're going to be exterminated like, the mentally disabled under Hitler's regime. And that's not even an exaggeration. You'll be exterminated. Doesn't matter if you believe in Allah or not. If you're gay or abnormal in their eyes, you're not heterosexual, you're dead. Dead. And maybe they save you the pain by shooting you in the head or chopping your head off completely. But I don't know if you've seen the latest videos on how, the Sharia law guys kill people in the desert. It's not always painless, all right? But it's interesting that someone through some lazy-brained existence can find the recipe, the unequivocal recipe of their own demise, and worship it, nurture it, and feed it, and spread it. It's like, are you kidding me? Look at all the NASA fanboys, the Elon Musk fanboys, SpaceX fanboys, maybe even a fanboy of theoretical physics. Okay, so how do these individuals get to keep going and going and going? Lying and lying and lying, stealing billions of dollars. Because fanboys are lazy. They're in this memorize and repeat pattern of life. And because they can sit at the Thanksgiving table and rattle off a bunch of statistics about the Falcon 9 or, I don't know, Project Orion or whatever it is, and their family's like, see, I told you he was brilliant. They feel good. They've accomplished their goal. They've gotten accolades from individuals that they care about. And that's the real goal. And that's the simple, funny part about intellectual hatred, is that it's really to get a goal of acceptance in society. Because let's think about it. If you want to fix something, what's the last thing that you do? You don't break it, right? Because breaking and fixing are polar opposites, mutually exclusive concepts. And so if you want to fix society, and you want to call yourself an intellectual, the funny part is introducing an algorithm of hatred into society is a destructive philosophy. Hatred. I don't know what your parents said when you were a kid, but when I was a child, I used the word hate very sparingly when I was a kid. But if I ever slipped up and said it, my parents would say, don't say that word. And I say, why? I said, because it's way more powerful than you think. It's not good for you to say that. You don't really hate anything. And it's true, even as a child, the concept of Satan or whatever you think is like the unequivocal thing to hate, you really don't have a concept for hatred. No one's ever done you wrong that bad. You might be afraid of things. In terms of hatred, well, some of you have definitely experienced some things where you can definitely say, I hated that. So to you get that privilege 100%. But now, when you hate something, do you feel awesome? Does your biology go, yeah, totally hate that guy. I feel so much better now that I've said it. Hatred is one of these things where what you're really telling yourself is, I really wish I wasn't here right now. I really wish I wasn't here to have experienced something that makes me hate something. And that's important to realize. When you're a child, you'll have a dispute with another child, whether it be your brother, your sister, or some neighbor friend. And the mothers who sit over the situation, or a mother, especially if it's your brother and sister, because your mother, with a brother and sister situation, she has no choice but to love both of her kids and to not take sides. She's just realizing the children are angry at each other for whatever reason. He's touching me. And so you have this parental unit, coming in and being beautiful to both of you to get you both calmed down. Now, if you rub her nerves too much, she's going to pop on you and swap both of you. But even in that gesture, she loves you. You're both her children. And so what's funny about it, or interesting, or ironic about it, is that when we look at society, we're not being that parent. We're being someone that is exacerbating the hate. We're maybe one of the children creating the hatred, as if somehow this is going to pan out in the end. Now, I told you guys that during the Trump impeachment, there was this whole thing of, I had a celebrity friend of mine that's went out the night of the impeachment vote and, ran around LA celebrating this whole event. No crimes at all in the impeachment articles, just you're a poo-poo head sort of charges, right? And it doesn't take more than a few seconds to realize that this individual, if I mention half the things I mentioned on this show about true world agendas, especially Agenda 21 of all things, it's like talking to someone in the jungle about how to fix miniaturized electronics. It's not their fault they don't know. But if they started, talking to you about how crappy your video camera is or whatever, and they don't even have a conception of what it is, then you're going to be a little confused, right? You're at least going to say, well, maybe you should learn about this a little bit, and then maybe you won't hate it so much. What's fascinating about the United States of America in 2020, January, it sounds so much better than 2019, is that things are being fixed for the American citizens. And we have a tremendous amount of American citizens that double down that the individual that's helping things get better wasn't going to be able to do such a thing. We had the previous president do speeches that said there's no way that jobs can be created by the government. A guy that pulled every cheap trick in the book to increase the bureaucracy of welfare, to get people on welfare so they could soup up all the welfare programs and then hire more government workers, to say that he created jobs. So his whole methodology of creating jobs was to rape the people of their jobs and then make the government bigger. Part of the Agenda 21 is to make government as big as possible. He was about to sign the TPP, which would have been NAFTA on steroids. I mean, it really was. It was going to gut this place. It was going to gut your place too. Anyone who signs it, you just pull the trigger on the gun up to your head. It's an automatic, not a revolver. So the bullet's coming down the barrel at your brains, and you're going to be splattered all over the wall if your government signed the TPP. So in America, we have an interesting thing that the president and the administration has fixed one thing after another, making things better. Stock markets, record high. Unemployment, record low. We've drastically reduced the amount of legal immigrants coming over, / drug cartels, coyotes, and child traffickers, plus rapes that go on during those experiences with the coyotes. And then we have a good 40%, 35-40% of the citizens pissing and moaning that things are so great. Because they don't want to be wrong. It's more important that they're right with their faux intellectual minds than for the country to be better. In Europe, it's the complete opposite, right? You have Europe, and I mean, not the citizens necessarily, and I have no idea what the percentages are. Based on your comments, you guys are awake, and it's something you're working on, right? Brexit's about to occur at the end of this month. Thank God. But in Europe, there's this, we're the EU, we're amazing, we have no national borders, we have a bunch of folks from the Middle East invading our countries. Every single major country in that Europe is now bankrupt. Germany, France, Spain, and Italy, bankrupt, man. They're printing money now, which is what we were doing in Obama's era. They're doing quantitative easing, printing tons and tons of euros to fix the problem, which is going to bite you in the ass. You're going to go from being about $1.10 to the American dollar, back down to 77 cents, then probably down to 50 cents until you're a peso. So this outer shell says that everything is great, but what's going on underneath is a complete self-destruction of Europe. All the culture built up in Germany, France, Spain, Italy, all over the place is disintegrating under the EU's pressure. Okay, so how the hell was that able to stay there? It's because of this faux intellectual behavior. Everything that made those countries great has been hated. You're not supposed to have, again, national borders. Okay, so let's just get rid of all of the traditions of those countries. The food, the wardrobe, the culture, the history, everything. The language itself should go away. I guess everyone should speak, I don't know, English? Pick a language. Pick any language and you're all supposed to speak it. Since no one in those 3 countries has a native English-bound thing, I guess you should pick English, because that way you can hate your native language as well. If this starts to sound really ridiculous, well, there you go. We're starting to make progress here. My big question is, when is this going to stop? And how is it going to stop? And are we ever going to take a position with our friends and family to go, I'm not going to be hating anything anymore. You know what I'm going to look at? The same thing I would look at for an employee that I've hired for my company. One of the best things you can do with your life is to be results-driven. What is the opposite of results-driven? Well, in my opinion, it has to do with people that chase schedules. Not keeping things on schedule. That's something that you have to. That's a results-driven person. But, when your ass is in the seat, when it comes time to, start the job. With my employees, all probably 100 of them, I always told them, I said, well, here's the thing. If you have a meeting with a client, then you need to be, spiffed up, dressed up properly. If whatever job we are dealing with here, it don't mean suits or anything, but just look good, smell good, and be there on time. 100%. Be prepared for your meeting. Then bring all the data you get from the meeting, distribute it to folks that need the information, make sure we're on schedule. But as long as the projects come in on time and on budget, you'll never hear me complain about you rolling in at 11 o'clock in the morning. I don't care. Come at, stay home 3 days a week. I don't care. As long as everything gets done on time, and I feel like I'm getting from you the value for my salary that I'm paying you, I'm good. Now, some hard asses might say, oh, well, if they can get that done with the amount of time that you give them and the money you give them, then work them extra hard so you can put 2 of them in there or 1.5 of those things in there. Well, what's funny is when you leave people alone and they love their life and they love their projects, they do it by themselves. And I'll just give you a little digression, a little story, which I've given once before in 500 episodes. Had an employee. I had just joined the company. He was a producer. Previous manager that was managing this guy, she had told our upper boss that he should be fired. He was so bad at his job. She resigns. I take over her producers. I realize these guys haven't been told anything about how to produce. Not a single word. So I said, okay, guys, what's the best day of your whole life? And they told me. I said, okay, I'm going to make that the way it's supposed to be. You guys cool with that? They're like, hell yeah. 100% buy-in. You're just telling me that I told you my best day ever, meaning the best project ever, how it went, and you're going to make that the standard. I said, yeah. Isn't that the best way to do it? They're like, yeah, fuck yeah, it is the best way to do it. This guy, who's a very successful real estate guy today, he took on 5 projects at once. His cohorts, his companions within the producer layer of the company were probably 1 or 2. This dude took 5, brought in all 5 on time. It was his choice. But now he set the bar within the department that if you're a producer and I'm doing 5, what are you doing? And so guys started taking more and more and more, and everyone's bringing them all in on time. Within a month, my boss, before he resigned, who had balled this guy out because he took the advice of the other manager who left, sat the guy down, and he was big enough, and I love this guy forever for doing this. He sat across the table from the dude and said, I was told that you were really bad at your job, and I'm sorry that I bought into that evaluation of you because under, Mark, you're kicking ass at taking names, so I apologize, keep doing it, and we gave him a raise. And then my boss quit, and then I took his job. But it went from a hatred-based model for this guy. You're hated. You're about to get laid off. And we flipped it to a positive realm of not only you're not going to get fired, but your methodology of managing a project is now the standard for everyone in the whole company, in this particular division of the company. And it was even bigger than that because the second in command at Electronic Arts, a woman named Nancy Smith, wonderful lady. She was about to liquidate the entire department just before I got hired. And even after I got hired, they still had us on the chopping block. As my producers started to turn in project after project, getting every single division of the company on track, I showed her the new process. She just said, literally in a meeting, she goes, I've been waiting for 2 years for this to happen. I love this. And she canceled the initiative to lay off everyone in the company in that particular area. And we proceeded to kick ass and take names. And my producers and my workers have been some of the most successful employees after EA of any company I've ever worked for. So it turned into a positive, constructive world. And that's what we have to do for our countries. We have to do it for the world itself. You know that if you've watched this show habitually, there are a ton of things we need to discuss in this world. And we're too afraid to have the conversation. We do have to control our population growth. We do. Problem is the two countries that violate the world's population the most, one of them's communistic and the other one is sort of so ass backwards. It's going to take some initiatives that they have to believe in. One of them believes in world domination, and the other one's just kind of chilling, We do have to figure out a way to get off of oil. We do. It's a bad substance to use. In America, I can tell you that for a lot of us, what we have come to the grips with is that children have been running our country for decades and decades and decades. They may be old looking. They may be very old in general. But what does a child do that's different than an adult? Especially when it comes to the haves and the have-nots, the playing with toys. Well, your little bastard kids always say, mine, 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 and they won't let anyone else play with their toys. And, you'll see a kid play with a fire hydrant, and then he gets tired of it. He puts it off to the side, and he's playing with something else. Then another kid comes up, picks up the fire hydrant, and has a blast with it. And as soon as he sees the other kid having fun with the toy he's not playing with, now all of a sudden he wants it back. So he puts out the second toy that he was playing with. The kid grabs the second toy, the alternate, and starts having fun with it. Well, then he wants it back. It's childish behavior, right? Well, the older politicians in the United States, and this includes all levels of government, they have been playing that game for a long time. Your money's their money, and their money's their money. It's all about how can you be a politician, get a lifetime pension, get the best health care in the world, commit crimes, serious boy-touching, girl-touching crimes, like Podesta, Biden. Biden's on video, pinching girls' boobs, little tiny girls, 4 or 5-year-old girls. He's on video doing it. If you haven't seen it, you're a coward. Go look at it. This guy is running for the President of the United States. That's the old guard going after the new guard. Well, in America, we're done. We're done with that crap. Children have been running this country for way too long. All the agendas that they say that they're qualified to rule down on, they have absolutely zero knowledge of. Economics. When's the last time we had anyone in the House, the Senate, or the White House that knew anything about economics? Apparently, none. We have been in a boom and bust cycle since I was a kid. Every 6 to 8 years, they crash the economy. They crashed it in 92, 93. Then the internet gave us a little bit of a reprieve. So 9/11 happens and they crash it in 2002. Then they crash it 6 years later in 2008. And because we changed guards, and the 2008 is still ripping us up to this day. But since we changed guard, things are coming back now. We got a guy that understands money. And we've got this intellectual hatred for every bit of progress that's going on. We have, Bill Maher, the guy with some really weird kid-touching organization in the background. He literally told his fans, that he doesn't mind a recession if it gets rid of our president. This is a multi-millionaire wishing harm on the entire country, especially the middle class and the lower class, right? Those are already in poverty, already on welfare. He's telling you, I don't mind if you suffer for another, recessions never come and go in a year, right? A recession comes, technically speaking, in case you don't know this, in America, a recession takes 2 years to completely envelop the entire country. It happens on the coasts first, because it's the more highly populated, more densely populated industrial areas of America. And then it takes about 2 years to reach the Midwest. And that's just full of proliferation of the destruction of a recession. And then it lasts another 2 to 4 years after that. And then it repairs in the exact same orientation. It repairs on the coasts first, and then repairs in the Central America second. Again, another 2-year cycle. So Bill Maher just wished upon the people, and there's a bunch of people that jumped behind this as soon as he said it. He wished 4 to 6 to 8 years of recession, suffering for Americans, simply because he doesn't want to admit that his party was wrong about everything for decades and decades and decades. And hey, the Republican Party was screwed up too. You think the Bush family doesn't participate in, world economics? My God, they're part of the hidden Rockefeller banking cartel families. Their wealth has been calculated in some regards as being nearly $1 trillion worth of wealth. That might be bullshit, but they're definitely in the billions. So having rich people, privileged people, wish harm on everyone else in this faux intellectual hatred in order to not be wrong, right? They're going to crash everything and celebrate it so that they don't have to correct themselves. Can you think of anything more cowardly? Can you think of anything more selfish than that opinion? Europe. I know very little about exactly what's going on, except I have a friend in Sweden, and she's telling me that her country is just completely upside down. She was here, and she's fully Americanized, but she had to move back because her mother wasn't feeling well. And she sends me emails every once in a while. She goes, you wouldn't even believe this place. She goes, I can barely recognize it. She goes, we have all these sanctuary cities. We have these communities where no one, earns a dime, but they're paying their rent with all of our tax dollars. She goes, it's insane. Okay, you got two choices to fix that problem. You have the intellectual hatred side of it, and then you have the pragmatic, let's just fix the problem. One, you need to turn off the EU. Get out of it. Let it go. Bust. Bad experiment. Socialism only precedes dictators, right? It's socialism. It's a gun grab. Second Amendment. Redaction of rights. And then the dictator shows up and you're all under a thumb. And that's Agenda 21, 100%. That's what's going on, right? So you can pull out of the EU and then shut off all this, subsidies to people that shouldn't be in your country in the first place and send them back home. That's the intellectual solution to the problem. Or you could go to the faux hatred problem and say, oh, we got to have a revolutionary, we have to have a civil war in every one of these countries to kill these people and to chase them out of the country and create a bunch of enemies. Well, which one sounds better? Right? Which one sounds better? Agenda 21, there's a whole episode on it. You need to go see it, and then you need to do your research. Rosa Koire is a person you need to look up. They need to bankrupt every country because the goal of Agenda 21 is to spread poverty, not to spread wealth. They want to take all first world countries and bring them down to third world country levels. It's in their paperwork, okay? It's what's happening to the European community. The more that America prospers, the more they hate the fact that there's a have across the ocean. And so instead of becoming haves in their own world, they want to tear down the haves across the pond. It's a faux intellectual exercise. You're not intellectual if that's your goal. If someone else has to lose so that you can win, you're immature. You don't understand how the game works. instead of being a competitive sport to see how, your experiment of running your world can be better. Let's see who can, survive with as little as possible. Who can suffer the most? I don't know about you, but I don't think we can afford to go down that track, okay? So the reason why I make this episode is to identify this sort of algorithm of behavior that we've all suffered from, right? When we were young, we did all have mine attitude, but we were children, most likely. We got into our 20s and we carried a little bit further. You see someone else succeed and you get jealous and envious. And so you want them to fail instead of wanting to succeed more than them, perhaps, if you want to be competitive. I mentioned this once before, but when I was first getting into professional video game artistry, I joined a little company in Oxnard, California. Its initial name was Atomic Entertainment. They eventually changed their name to Aftershock Entertainment. The company went out of business before they released any of their 3 products. And it's because of the Super Nintendo was killing PC games. But we all went off and made our own games. I made a game called Mutant Warriors. My other buddies, I forgot what their game was called, but it was pretty cool. It was like a RoboCop sort of robot running around shooting things in a level. It was really beautiful, all hand-drawn. It was amazing. But I get hired in, I think, late June of 1989. And I had turned in my first project for a game called Robo Wars by the end of, probably about July 25th or so, right? So about a month. I did the world artwork. So when you're looking top down in this game, you were seeing San Francisco in the future. The CEO pulls up my work in front of the entire group of artists and, unbeknownst to me, says, "Look at this. This is fantastic. He's already done. And some of you guys have been working on the same project for 6 months and you're still drawing it and your stuff doesn't look this good." And of course, I got really embarrassed because I'm 19 years old going, "Oh God, you're making me an enemy of everyone in the whole room." But here's what happened. There was a dude in Wisconsin who was drawing some part of one of our games, and when I saw it, it was a very remedial art. I just couldn't believe it. He was sort of a grown man, late 20s, early 30s, something like that. I'm 19. He was done in a week because he was embarrassed that he took so long for his artwork. But this other kid who was the uber artist, this guy was the one that I talked about several times, who taught me how to draw animations properly and just a lot of tricks of the trade. It was Deluxe Paint. He was teaching me how to draw on it. Because I was already an artist, that wasn't a question. But he turns in, within, 2 weeks, this unbelievably gorgeous, like King Arthur castle. It was for one of our games called Enchanted Lands, and which I don't think I worked on that game. But it was beautiful. It was a top-down, tile-based artwork system, because that's all you had back in those days. But it was every meticulous detail of bricks, of aged stone that built these castles, little tiny nooks of, like wood structures and kiosks and stuff all over the grounds of the castle. It was gorgeous. But why did he turn that in so fast, and why did he knock it out of the park? Because his boss said, "Look at this kid." What my coworker didn't do was sabotage me, because there was no way he could do it. I went back to my house, drew in Camarillo, bringing in the discs to Oxnard. I don't know where he lived, but he kicked ass and took names. And he made me go to the next level when it came time for me to turn on my next project. And so we just kept leapfrogging each other. And it was this beautiful, competitive, friendly situation. And the kid never, as a matter of fact, when I had to draw the sprites for my next project, which was drawing for a game called Time Riff, I was doing all of the Greek gods. So Medusa and, the two-headed wolf and just a bunch of really complex stuff. He sat down and taught me how to do it. Well, here I am, the competitive kid. And he didn't hobble me in any way, shape, or form. He helped me out. And that's the spirit of really Southern California in general, when you really meet the good people that make things happen. They don't covet. And one, that's what I've been trying to bring you folks in every single realm of thinking. But we have to get to a point, if we're ever going to get to Gene Roddenberry's world, where everyone's at equal level of education, no matter if you're in the jungle or if you're in the city, you have the same exact education, meaning the same opportunities. You have different needs, wants, and desires, and so you're going to specialize in different things. But can you imagine, like, we're sitting here in the city and we don't like our water because our water is heavily polluted with chlorine and all kinds of crap that makes us have to use CLR to clean off our faucets. But someone in the desert community of maybe the Middle East, they're tired of desalination plants because they cost too much, right? There's too much energy to make clean water. But they find out a way to steam water out of thin air by building like little igloo things, and it just makes dew water, and it's so amazingly efficient that 10 of these things in any village, and everyone's got plenty of fresh water. Then that device comes over to Southern California, and I put a couple pods in the backyard. Maybe I just need one. Maybe our community decides to chop up some land between our houses, and we put a little community one in there, and we run pipes everywhere, and everyone has got plenty of fresh water. That's everybody winning at the same exact time. But we invent something that goes to the desert that lets them maybe use cell phones a little bit safer, without, horrid radiation. These are our options, and, this isn't a situation where it's like, well, if we ever get to that point, we'll do it. No, it's right now. It's right now that we need to do it. It's right now that we need to cop this attitude that we're all going to win together, as opposed to beating each other up for no reason. So I hope you dig that. This is something I see all the time, and frankly, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sick and tired of it. I have yet to sit down with someone who takes a complete opposite view of what I take, and then I ask them a few foundational questions about how the world works, and they've got answers that are correct. Because some of it's just, you're either right or you're wrong. You either understand how money is valued in this world or you don't. You either understand how to start a business or you don't. You either know the history of our politicians who are totally corrupt or you don't. And it's so screwed up. Cognitive dissonance is so heavy in America right now that you have, Joe Biden, child toucher Joe Biden, sits on video with the Council on Foreign Relations and brags about a quid pro quo situation where he held back $1 billion of American taxpayer dollars from Ukraine unless they fire a prosecutor who's investigating who? His son. Right? But he'll campaign and stomp and say that there's no crimes against his kid. And it's like, okay, well then why did you have a problem with someone investigating your kid if your kid's going to be exonerated in the first place? But they'll go over to the guy that did do that, the President of the United States, and press these non-existent crime charges on him. There's nothing in the articles of impeachment. This is the world we're in. They just want their team to win for the sake of winning and not for any level of justice in the world. And again, as I said in my Trump impeachment episode, which is only on YouTube and other video formats, you wouldn't want to be in that court if your life depended on it, especially because they just make up shit. There's no justice. There's no lawyers to represent your side. The press isn't allowed to record how absurd your kangaroo court session went. The other party that you might belong to politically is not allowed in the room to even know what's said about you. But you end up behind bars. Really? So you get the world you deserve is really what it boils down to. And I don't know about you, but I'm on this airline. I'm 30,000 feet with all these people, and I don't want the plane to go into the ground just simply because some guy in the background is experiencing this, intellectual hatred. for being perhaps incorrect. You know, research nothing, know everything, right? Anyway, if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. It's got everything you need. It's got two video, which is YouTube and BitChute. Please go up to BitChute and make an account. It's more important that you make an account on BitChute than it is for you to subscribe to this channel on BitChute, because they need as many followers as they can have, because at some point they're going to have to raise money to get to the next level, and their subscription rate is going to be the deciding factor for the investors, and the rate of growth is going to be a huge deciding factor. So help them with that rate of growth. Brighteon's coming on board, but again, they've got this, censor by design mechanism where you have to have so many views before your videos get hosted. It's really sad. I think they mean well, but it's a bad design. Why they can't copy BitChute, I have no idea. We have podcast links up there. We got social media. Social media is a locked Facebook group, a Twitter account, and Minds.com. Minds.com, Minds.com, is a competitor to Facebook. It's prettier than Facebook. You have to have an account to go inside, just like Facebook, but your freedom of speech is 100% protected. So if you want to post some pretty crazy crap, get over to Minds.com, post it. No one will ever delete it. I mean, your initial article outside of Minds.com might get deleted, but not Minds.com doing anything to your feed. It's very cool. There's a couple ways to donate to the page. There's the one-stop shop PayPal donation, and then there is the monthly subscription, which is Patreon. And for those of you who subscribe, thank you so much. It makes a huge difference. Again, the goal with raising money is to do this full time, but we would have to have easily 1,000 times more people subscribing and contributing to make that happen at this stage. I think the average income from this show is about $70 to $80 a month between YouTube and Patreon combined. Some of you have reported in that you have switched to the Brave browser, the Brave web browser, and you did realize something that I never really stressed, which is it is a much faster browser. And the main reason it's really fast is they cut off all the ad trackers, all the ads being displayed on your page, autoplay videos. It's all cut off. So it's on your phone, it's on your computer. Get it, it's free. When you get it, change the search engine from Google to DuckDuckGo, and you'll finally start seeing the internet the way it used to exist before 2003, when Google turned on their ads and started pushing all of the best results down unless they paid for the service. And just to give you an analogy here, let's say that your neighbor was a plumber and you got plumbing issues. So you search online to find the closest, cheapest, best plumber out there. It's really your neighbor. But because they have to buy ads now to get featured anywhere, it's giving you all the big giant carriers who could give a crap whether or not they actually do a good job or not. And they have the highest prices in town because they bought the privilege to interrupt your neighbor's pricing, and so you get screwed. So DuckDuckGo will find the one next to you. That's the beautiful thing. Plus, they don't track anything that you do. So the browser doesn't track what you do, and the search engine doesn't track what you do. Plus, they poked out the eye of everyone trying to track who the hell you are and where you are. If you want to run VP and stuff underneath, that's up to you. It will definitely cut off the corporations from knowing who you are. The other one is if you have a backup need on your computer, there's a cloud-based service that is phenomenal called Backblaze. $7.99 I think gives you infinite storage per computer. So if you have two computers, it'd run you about $15. But man, is it worth it? It's saving my bacon. I've got 16 terabytes in the cloud, just to give you an analogy or give you an example of how that works. You won't find any season 1 videos on this particular channel, so you're going to have to go up to the website and click that. The website also has a search engine. The website has category lists. I did update, by the way, the demonetized list. Apparently there is, of season 2 through 5, there's 64 videos, a bunch of them are actually in season 1, but they were all demonetized. Now, season 1, by the way, doesn't have any ads at all because it hasn't qualified for ad running at all. So you can see all of season 1 without any ads. And of course, if you come in through podcast, it's just straight up MP3. For those of you asking me why the season 1 doesn't come up on your podcast, it's because your podcast software limits you to, I think, about 350 episodes of anything that you subscribe to. So because we're way over that number, the whole season 1 is buried. But what you can do is go up to the website on your phone, find the episode you dig, click download, and it downloads the MP3 to your phone, and you just play it through your normal MP3 player on your telephone or whatever podcast device you like. So, with all that said, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.